to the top 12 wide receivers. And again, it's the top 2, and then it's the rest, right? Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, these guys, well, CeeDee Lamb cracked the top 2, I think, for a week or 2. But one of these guys has been number 1 for pretty much the last 3 years. Chase with an incredible season. Justin Jefferson might break some records in week 18 playing against this miserable Lions defense for the conference, for the bye. I can't wait to see what Jefferson does in this game. So it's Chase and Jefferson at the top. Malik Nabers is number 3 for me. Puka Nacua is number 4. CeeDee Lamb has fallen to number 5, and I don't know if that's justified or not, but man, I don't want to sleep on how good Puka Nacua has been the last 2 years either. Amon-Ra St. Brown is number 6. Brian Thomas Jr. has climbed all the way to number 7. Nico Collins at 8. Jackson Smith-Njigba, remember when he was a rookie loser? He's now wide receiver 9. Ladd McConkey, wide receiver 10. Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver 11. Jordan Addison, wide receiver 12. That's Chase, Jefferson, Nabers, Nacua, Lamb, St. Brown, Thomas, Collins, JSN, McConkey, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Jordan Addison. We've already got a comment in the chat about Ladd McConkey. And so I don't feel any reservation about having elevated Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of Marvin Harrison Jr. Did I go too far in moving Ladd McConkey ahead of Marvin?
No, you didn't go too far at all. If you look at some of the numbers from Ladd McConkey, Jacob Gibbs, again, has some of these. I don't have them handy. Wish I did, but you can check his page. They're phenomenal. And then just the film. That's what I can go off of, Heath, because I've seen a lot of it. This guy uncovers to a crazy extent. And I talked about this on a Beyond the Box Score maybe 3 weeks ago with Jacob. When you watch his tape, you start to see the early, and it's early because they haven't had a lot of time working together, Heath, especially because McConkey missed some time in camp with an injury. And that's some of the issue with his profile, by the way. The injuries are an issue. But you see the early glimpses of that anticipatory throwing between him and Herbert. He's not even out of his break, and Herbert has the ball released. Those out routes are almost unguardable. You talk about Amon-Ra St. Brown as a player who has some routes that are unguardable. A few of the other guys on this list have some routes that are unguardable. The out routes with McConkey and Herbert are going to become unguardable. So I do not think you have him too high. And I will say this, looking at this list, Heath, I look at that top 8 and I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can't change my strategy and go running back because these guys are so good. Like, I want a piece of that. I want to take a chance on somebody who, my draft pick, who can become one of those 8 players, because those 8 guys, top 8, are just so much better to me in Dynasty, worth so much more than really anyone.
So you mentioned like how good this list is, and it's incredible. I love it. But Garrett Wilson, Drake London, and A.J. Brown didn't make the list. That's my wide receiver 13, 14, and 15. Did I make a mistake leaving one of those guys out?
I think so. For me, and it's funny that I'm going to say this, but I'm a little bit low. Addison, I'd probably put one. I would definitely put, well, let me see how I want to phrase this. I would definitely have one of them over Addison. Probably all 3 that you mentioned. And there are other guys on this list I'm not as sold on as you maybe. Marvin Harrison Jr., one of them. And that's not as much on him as it is on Kyler and the situation I don't love. JSN, another one. I like it. But again, the guy I would have probably the highest of those 3 is Drake London. And here's Drake London's stats so far with Michael Penix Jr. at quarterback, who, by the way, I think will be very good for Drake London's fantasy value moving forward in Dynasty. Drake London with Michael Penix, small sample size, but he has a 34% target share and a 40% air yardage share. He's running different routes with Penix. He's being utilized at different areas of the field, and he's becoming the wide receiver I saw on tape at USC. And I've seen that at times. Like he was used more like that with Arthur Smith, but just Mariota and Ritter just couldn't get him the ball. Penix has arm talent. Penix can get him the football in different areas of the field. And so he's the one I'm most excited about, but I would have Garrett Wilson above here too. I know the situation's ugly there, but the talent is just immense there.
You know, something interesting, and I put this out, I think it was on Blue Sky yesterday. It might have been on Twitter, but Jordan Addison over the past 2 seasons has scored more PPR fantasy points per game than Drake London. And you think, well, Drake London's had some really bad quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But if I would have told you coming into this year, like Jordan Addison's going to play 17 games with Sam Darnold, or 16 games, or actually 14, I think it was, because a couple injuries. Like, we didn't think that Sam Darnold was a even good quarterback before this year. Jordan Addison has scored 19 touchdowns in his first 2 years in the NFL. Drake London has not scored 19 touchdowns in his first 3 years in the NFL. And Drake London hasn't scored a touchdown with Michael Penix yet, which I think I'm anticipating might still be a problem next year. Just because, like, we see it with the inexperienced quarterbacks. We see it with often rookies struggle in the red zone and getting the ball into the end zone through the air their first year as a starter.
You know what?
So,
You've made good points there. I think I'm reevaluating this. I honestly do feel that way because you talk about, like, in Dynasty, you like to look into coaching continuity. Right. In Minnesota, Kevin O'Connell isn't going anywhere, and Kevin O'Connell's done such a phenomenal job. So environment-wise, and the stats back it up, like you said, with Addison, and the fact that he's always going to have pretty much single coverage because of Justin Jefferson there, which is phenomenal for him. And Darnold is really good at diagnosing that. Darnold's playing great football. Now, I'll say this. I'm higher on Addison if they re-sign Darnold. I am lower considerably on Addison if they go to J.J. McCarthy.
Okay.
Reasons you just mentioned. But I think Darnold's playing phenomenal football.
Yeah, I think my expectation is probably going to be if O'Connell lets Darnold walk, that we're going to see McCarthy be just about as good as O'Connell as Darnold was. Because I didn't think Darnold was any good.
But I understand that.
And remember, like, Nick Mullins was throwing for 3. Yeah. I mean, how many great games did Jordan Addison have with Nick?
Standpoint? Right? You're talking from a fantasy standpoint.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I can see it being close. I just think Darnold's doing a lot of things that are really good to help move the football from a processing standpoint.
About these rankings, you see Malik Nabers at number 3. Do I have to move him down a couple of spots if the Giants beat the Eagles this week?
Well, it's hard to say because they're going to go through some different options. And I honestly feel like, as crazy as it is based on how bad he looked this year, again, not much removed from the injury, which I think he'll get better as he's more removed. The best bet might just be to sign Jameis or Kirk Cousins as far as Malik Nabers' fantasy value goes.
If Malik Nabers, like, how about sign Jameis and Joe Flacco?
Sure. And I mean, for his value, like, that's probably better than getting Shador or Cam Ward. You know what I'm saying? If they had the number 1 overall pick and they hadn't won these games. Yep. So I'm not ready to do it yet. If they punt the quarterback position like Joe Shane did this year with Drew Lock, Tommy DeVito, and Daniel Jones, the worst quarterback room I've ever seen enter a season, then yeah, it's going to be like that. But I feel like they got to learn from that mistake, I hope.
Yeah. Okay. You just said, I've got to go look this up. And we won't take too long for this. But you just said the worst quarterback room I've ever seen to open the season. Yes. And I'm just trying to think the year before, was it the Todd Haley year that the Chiefs had Tyler Thigpen and Brock Heward and Brody Croyle?
Oh, God. They entered a year with that?
Damon Heward, Brody Croyle, Tyler Thigpen combined to throw 563 passes.
Oh my God. So I am definitely wrong with my take here. But I can't believe a team entered a year with that.
And somehow Tony Gonzalez still had 1,100 yards.
Wow, that's unbelievable.
There you go.